Okay, so here with question number 5. What are your thoughts on rent control in Santa Ana? So for me personally, I've always actually, I've believe that Santa Ana is one of those situations, one of these cities that actually does benefit from rent control, or what we usually think of as rent stabilization, or some form of um, limiting the amount of rent that can be increased per year based off of inflation. So it's one of these things where, and it can be a contentious issue for a lot of folks, but I've been pretty supportive of it because of the particular dynamics of our city. Number one, we have just a large amount of kind of older apartments that haven't actually really been reinvested into, that have a lot of increasing rents. So you have these places that aren't necessarily reinvesting in their own communities and are still charging more and more money for them. So that we have a little bit of that dynamic going on, and we have a population that's basically being squeezed more and more and more in order to be able to afford anything, right? So it's like the average person basically has to work, 4 minimum wage jobs in order to be able to afford anything in the city. So it tackles one of the issues that we have, which is residential overcrowding, because so many people need to live together in an apartment in order to be able to afford it. So it's one of these things that I would be supportive of rent control. I don't believe that we actually have the number of votes on the city council currently. So the best way that I would move forward with this is actually doing another signature gathering campaign in order to get this in front of the voters and convince the majority of the voters here in Santa Ana that it is actually beneficial for the average person here in the city. And one of the things that always kind of gets talked about is this one study done in San Francisco by Stanford University that says, rent control is bad, these are all the negative effects. But if you actually look into the findings from that report, there's a paragraph that basically lays out how low-income communities of color were the main beneficiaries of rent control policies in San Francisco. And for me to be elected kind of in the city of here, I think that that's a major constituency that we have that we need to also be aware of, and to have certain public policies that also support them. So this is one of those things that I would be supportive of, that I am supportive of, that I hope to see in the city, because I do think it'll make a dramatic impact now for people that are experiencing the Southern California, the California housing crisis. So it's not a long-term solution. It's not going to solve everything. It's basically an emergency measure so that people don't end up homeless on our street.